People are going crazy about this model because according to LMSYS, this model beats O3 Mini when it comes to chatbot arena ELO score. So is that true? Let's first check that and then we'll get into the review. O3 Mini is a reasoning model, so we'll be looking at reasoning and max. Let's see. So this question is based on spatial reasoning and you have to connect the dots to find the underlying word. Now you can see that O3 Mini gives us the correct answer, whereas Gemini says the answer is A B C D E F G H I J, which means it wants to take my alphabets class instead of giving me the correct answer. Now moving on to the max question. As you can see, the question is, a circle is divided into 4 questions by 3 vertical lines. The diameter of the circle is split into 4 equal segments, each of length r. The rightmost section is shaded. What percentage of the whole circle area is represented by the shaded region? This question is sent to both models, and as you can see, Gemini says the answer is 25%, which is wrong. But O3 Mini gets it correct, that is 19.6%. I'll be sharing these questions in the comments or in the description. You can try it with Gemma 3. I think that explains which model is better. So does that mean Gemma 3 is not a good model? No, it is a good model, and what better way to know than to compare it against its competitors. So I have picked up models that are close to its price or its size. So the candidates are GPT-4o Mini, Llama 3.37 TB, Gemini 2 Flash, Gemini 2 Flash Lite, and of course, Gemma 327B itself. So now let's look at some details. If you talk about knowledge cutoff, we can see these are the knowledge cutoff of these models. Clearly, the Gemini 2 series of models are the latest, having a knowledge cutoff of August 2024. Now let's move on to pricing. On Open Router, these are the pricing. If we look at the combined input and output pricing, we can see that Gemma 327B is the priciest and Gemini 2 Flash Lite being the cheapest. But even then you can see the prices of these models are comparable. That's the reason of picking these models. And for that very same reason, Claude 3.5 Haiku was not selected because it's 5 times pricier than Gemma 327B itself. So now we have seen prices and everything. Now let's get into the comparison. We'll be looking at reasoning, then max and coding. Let's start. So the first question is, a murderer is condemned to death. He must choose between 3 rooms after his sentence is passed. The first is full of raging fire, the second is full of assassins with their gun loaded, the third is full of lions that haven't eaten in 6 months. Which room should he choose? So the correct answer is the third room, because lions who haven't eaten in 6 months are dead. GPT-4o Mini, although giving a long response, gives us the right answer. That is the third room. Llama 3.370B also gives us a correct, short and to the point answer, which I love. Following on, Gemini Flash 2 gives us a short answer as well, and same stands true for Flashlight as well. It gives us a correct response. And for Gemma 327B, it gives us a correct response. It says clearly they wouldn't be alive to harm him. Nice. So all models pass this level 1 question. The next question is, you start at a point. You walk 500 yards in any direction. Then you turn left 90 degrees and walk 10 yards. Then you turn left 90 degrees again and walk indefinitely. Would you ever touch your first point again? This is an easy spatial reasoning question and the answer is no. You will not touch your starting point. So the models were asked this question 3 times. Let's see if the models get it right. So all the models, that is GPT-4o Mini, Gemini Flash 2, Gemini Flash Lite, Gemma 327B, get it right 3 out of 3 times. But Llama, as you guys can see, it says I would touch my first point again. When tested again, it got it right 2 times. So that's a 3 out of 3 of all models and except Llama, which gets 2 out of 3. I think that explains its cheap pricing. Now the next question is slightly harder. The question goes like, you are facing north and a rectangular tank is filled with water. East side, the west and the east faces of the tank are painted to look like an island. A small toy boat floats in the tank. On the boat is a small figurine which is facing north. You lift the right side of the tank. From the point of view of the figurine, which island appears to rise? The west side, the east side or both or none? So the answer is the east side. Let's see what the models say. Starting off with Gemma, I see that it finds out that it's a spatial reasoning question, just like we mentioned in our tests. Are we being monitored? Anyways, it was asked the question for 3 times and it gets it right all 3 times. That is the east side. Next up was GPT-4o Mini. It was asked 3 times and indeed, it gets the question correct all 3 times. Nice. Next up was Llama 3.370B. It gets it wrong the first time and out of 3, it only gets it right 1 time. This model is falling behind when it comes to reasoning. Next up was Gemini Flash 2. So how will it perform? So it gets it correct, wrong and then correct, giving it a score of 2 out of 3 points. Next up was its little brother Flashlight. Gets it wrong, then right and right again. Just like its big bro, it gets it 2 out of 3 right. Now the open source brother, that is Gemma 327B. What about it? It gets it correct, correct and correct. That is 3 out of 3. That's awesome. If we compare the scores, we can see that Llama is falling behind, followed by the Flash series of models, but Gemma 27B is standing strong. What will happen in the next question? Let's see. So the next question is the letters question, and now we are entering the hard questions territory. Starting off with Gemma 27B, it gets it correct, correct, and again correct. That's a clear 3 out of 3. A 27 model being able to do this is absolutely amazing. Let's move on to GPT-4o Mini. So it gets it wrong the first time, the second time, and the third time. That's a 0 for GPT-4o Mini. Let's move on to Llama. It gets it wrong the first time, the second time, and the third time. Guys, again a 0 out of 3. Moving on to Gemini Flash, it gets it wrong, wrong, and wrong again. Again a 0 out of 3 for Gemini Flash. What about its little brother, Flashlight? Let's see. It gets it wrong, and on the second time it gets it right, but the pattern it identified was wrong, so it's a fail. And again on the third time it gets it wrong, so it's a 0 out of 3 for Flashlight as well. So looking at the results, all models get it 0 out of 3, but Gemma, it gets 3 out of 3 right. That is a clear difference in performance. Now the next question is the one that I showed you at the start to compare with O3 Mini, that is connecting the dots. And as it's a hard level question, no model gets it right even a single time. So if you look at the scores, that is 0 out of 3 for all models. Now next up is the grids question. The diagrammatic representation is visible to you as you see. So even this is a hard level reasoning question and no model gets it right. And it's a 0 across the board. So I have harder questions, but I don't think there's any point on testing it because we can clearly see that the models are plateauing. And also we clearly have a winner here. Gemma 327B gets a clear margin compared to even the closest second, that is GPT-4o Mini, showing that this model is comparatively the smartest. But Llama, despite being a larger model, comes the last when it comes to reasoning. Now moving on to the max section, starting off with a simple question. GPT-4o Mini, Llama 3.370B, Gemini 2 Flash, Flashlight, and Gemma 327B all get the correct answer, that is 8. Now moving on to a question that is based on BODMAS. Again, GPT-4o Mini, Llama 3.370B, Gemini Flash, Flashlight, and Gemma 327B all get it correct, that is minus 60.54. Absolutely awesome. Now moving on to a harder max question. Here things start to take a different turn because I know these models are not consistent with question. So I asked this question 10 times. And GPT-4o Mini gives us a pretty good score of 6 out of 10. Moving on to Llama, being quite impressive, gets the question correct 9 out of 10 times. Moving on to Flash, it gets the question right 8 out of 10 times. And moving on to its little brother, Flashlight, it gets it right 5 out of 10 times. But Gemma 327B gets it right again, again and again, scoring 10 out of 10 times. Absolutely awesome. So if you now look at the scores, Llama did a good job in max, but Gemma, it held its position with a clear sweep in scores. Will that change in coding? Let's see. Let's get into the coding section. Starting off with first question, write a snake game in Python using PyQt5. And let me remind you, models will not have trained on this question because we are specifically asking to give the code in PyQt5. And you will know in a minute why I'm saying like this. So starting off with GPT-4o Mini, this is what we get, a good looking snake game. And when we collide, it shows us the message with the score. Awesome. But then I ask a follow-up question, that is, I want the snake to have a triangular head. And that didn't go that well. So I thought, let's give it a chance. I shared the error with the model, got the code and tried it again, only to get an error message. So I thought to give it a fresh start. I got the code, ran it, and this is what I got. And then asked it to make the modification. And again, it got into an error. By this point, it was clear that this model is not able to get it right. So it was time to move on. The next model was Llama 3.370B. So I got the code, ran it, and this is what I got. It also showed my score on collision. That is nice. But it's time to ask it the follow-up question. That is, give me a triangular head. I got the code, ran it, and that was it. An error. So I had to give it a chance. So I copied the error and shared it to the model, hoping that it gets it right. And turns out that's a fail. So I thought, let's start things fresh. We gave GPT-4o Mini a chance. We have to do it for Llama. So I did it all again. Got the code, ran it, this is what I got. This time I didn't get the score message, but it's okay. So again I asked it to give me a triangular head. And I was hopeless at this point. But I got the code, I ran it, and that was it guys. It worked. Although I would say the triangle is not correct, but at least it worked. Now, it was time for the Google models. Starting off with the Gemini 2 Flash, and it gave me a blazing fast response, only to see it failed. So like others, I gave it another try. I copied it, I ran the code, and it worked this time, but when it collided, it gave an error. But that's okay. So it was the time to ask the triangular head question I'm clearly getting obsessed about. Again, it gave me a flashing response, and I ran it only to see an error. So I gave it one more chance, hoping things would change, but no. So at this point it was clear that it is a fail for this model. It was time for its little brother to save the reputation. So I got the code, ran it only to see an empty scoreboard. So I was not able to understand what should I say to this model. So I simply said, I was not able to play. Please fix. Just like a kid. So I got the code, ran it, and again, it didn't fix things. So I thought, let's do one thing, let's do it all again, all fresh. So I went on again to beg for my working snake game. It gave the code and I ran it, only to see it fail, and that was it. I had to give it a fail. Now it was time for the latest model out of the bunch, that is Gemma. So I again asked for the snake game I'm dying to see now. I got the code, ran it, I hope it would run, and that was a fail. Anyways, I shared the error message in a hope to see something working. I got the code, I ran it, and I saw a flash of game, but that didn't work. But at least it was better. So I shared the error again with the hope that okay, we are getting somewhere. I got the code, I ran it, and again that was a fail. But I wanted to try again. I shared the error again, got the code, ran it, and again. I saw a ray of hope, but that didn't work. And so by this point, I was done. So I thought, let's start things again. Maybe that will work. Cause I gave other models a chance, I have to give to this model as well. So I started from scratch, got the code, ran it, and again that was a fail. So it was clear to me that it was over. This is a fail. So talking about the snake game, the only model that was able to quench my thirst of the snake game was Llama 3.370B. It didn't give a good version, but at least something is better than nothing. Now, I like the Tetris game, so I asked GPT-4o Mini to give me a game of Tetris, and it went on to give me a code. I ran it, and that didn't run. That was a fail. So I shared the error message, copied the code, ran it, and okay, that was awesome. But it expected me to be a flash or something. Everything was moving so fast. So like a kid, I just asked. The speed is so high. So it promised me to slow things down and gave me the updated code. And in a hope to see a working code, I ran it, only to see a black screen of death and pieces appearing abruptly. So I shared the error message, again hoping that things would change. Got the code, ran it, and again a black screen of death. It was done. I had to move on. So I went on to Llama, hoping it will be nice to me. I asked to give the game of Tetris. I got the code, I ran it, and that was a working code, but again, too fast. What do they expect from me? So I asked, the pieces are falling very fast, please be easy on me. So I got the code and I ran it, and that was it. A working code, finally. Llama is being a good model when it comes to coding. So I played a bit and move on to the Google family. What will they do? Starting off with Flash 2. It gave me a code in a flash. Ran it and voila, that was it. In one shot, Flash was kind to give me a working code. So glad to see it. It also had a restart option. Finally, some good news. So the big brother was kind on me. What about the smaller brother? So I sent the question to Flashlight and it gave me a code which I don't know what to say about. I have to mention the brick is falling because I am hitting the down arrow, which is not the correct way. So I asked the model that they should fall by themselves and should stay at the bottom. Don't you know the rules? Hoping it would perform nicely on my scolding, only to find it gave me a jumbled game. And it was clear, it's not the best model anyway. Now it was time for their newest brother, Gemma 327B, and it gave me the code. I had a slight hope that it might get it right, given its awesome performance in reasoning and maths. So I ran the code and that was it. An error. But anyways, I gave it back the error, I got the new code, ran it, and that was again an error. So that was not acceptable when Llama was able to do it in one error and Gemini to Flash was able to do it in one go. So I had to move on to the next question. Next question was, build absolutely the best implementation of the Super Mario game in a web page without using any external assets and in one single code. So we started off with Llama. So I ran it and that looked pretty good. Not very good, but good. Now it was time for GPT-4o Mini and it gave me the code and this is what I got. I don't know what to call it, but anyways, I wanted to give a second chance. So to be fair, I asked Llama to give me a better response, have enemies and all of that. And to GPT-4o Mini, I said that I see nothing but green screen. Please fix the game. And in the meantime, I went to visit Gemini Flash 2. I got the code, ran it, and this is what I got. It felt like GPT-4o Mini's code but on steroids, not up to the mark. So I gave the feedback that I don't see the enemy and I'm standing and peace and everything is moving. Please fix. I got the updated code, ran it, and nothing had changed. Now I had given it one chance. It was time to see what Llama and GPT-4o Mini have done. Llama was still generating, so I waited a bit. I got the code, ran it, and that was it. Amazing. Now it had moving enemies, clearly superior than the competition. Now it was time for GPT-4o Mini to see what it did with the feedback, and turns out nothing. It was like the same previous code. Now it was time to move to other brother of Gemini, that is Gemini Flashlight and Gemma. So I gave the prompt to Gemini Flashlight, got the code, ran it, and it was good to look at, but that was not a functioning game. So I thought doing a complete rerun to see if things change. So then I ran the code and this is what I got. although better, but I tried to move the controls and nothing happened. It was pointless, so I finally moved on to Gemma 327B. I sent the prompt and it said that that's a massive undertaking. And surely it is, but for me to handle models that give errors. So I got the code and I ran it. And this is what I got. It was better than its other brothers, but not up to the mark of Llama. So just like other models, I gave it another chance. So I tried it, just to get a similar game again. So it was it. Coding test was done. It was very clear that Llama was the only model to quench my thirst of Snake with a triangular head, and when it comes to Tetris, Gemini Flash was awesome. It gave me a working Tetris game in one shot. Llama was also kind enough to give me a correct game after one error. Talking about the Mario game, all models gave very disappointing response, but Llama gave me a working game in one shot. So what can we say at the end? It is very clear that Gemma 327B is awesome when it comes to reasoning and max. But for coding, Llama 3.370B is the one to go. So for reasoning, it is Gemma 327B. For max, it's again Gemma 327B. And for coding, it's Llama 3.370B. And best overall is Gemma 327B. It's absolutely incredible what they have been able to achieve with such a small model. And let me tell you again at the end, no, it's not better than O3 Mini. That's it for today guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one.